We're calling it. The off season is officially over. We got to get one more mailbag in first. It's a podcast daily. It's Freaky Friday. And yeah, we've been doing a lot of mailbags, but you've been sending in a lot of questions. So Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and me, Austin Ward, we're having fun diving into them. And it's helped us get through this off season, which mercifully we say will conclude on Tuesday. We're heading up to Indianapolis on Monday to get ready for Big Ten Media Days. The Buckeyes are on day one. Tony Petitti will be there. There'll be lots to get into, and we'll be just talking nothing but ball leading up to the start of training camp on August 1st. So, Bill, happy end of offseason to you.
Oh, and a happy end of the offseason to you as well. And Berm covers recruiting, so his season never ends, but he's just
unfortunately, unfortunately for him, he has no offseason.
It's been actually a pretty quiet stretch. I mean, obviously a commitment on Thursday happened and Ohio State adds one. There's 3 or 4 more at the end of July and or end of August that I think could have some impact, but it's actually been, and I mean, knocking on at whatever wood you can find, like this has been maybe the quietest Ohio State offseason that I can remember. So here's hoping this weekend stays the same way and people can head into the preseason with nothing but good tidings.
I was texting and talking with Zach Boren earlier in the week, and he's like, how can it actually be this quiet? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really have any explanation for it, but I guess it's a lot of, at least for the veteran players handling their business, there's not been more wood to knock on here. There's been no off-field stuff. Like it's been, a team that's been healthy and keeping their nose to the grindstone. And then the coaches went on vacation for 3 weeks. So like, I guess those are the only explanations I can think of. Like, Bill, I don't know I don't even know what to compare it to. I just don't think there's ever been one like this.
I don't like talking about these things out loud.
I know.
Because then you invite the universe to make you look like a fool. So I'm not saying anything about it. Just gonna let it happen.
See, I don't know that I believe that curses or jinxes like that exist in baseball when an announcer it says, so-and-so's got a perfect game. Like that's his job as the announcer is to tell people what's going on. So I think it's kind of stupid when they're like, well, don't say what's going on. Like it's pretty important to talk about. But this is not that. This is just an observation about the last 6 months and how peaceful it has been. And so I don't think we're poking the universe here. I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's get to August 1st and the first day of practice. Let's get through media days. But first, let's get to questions for today's mailbag.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's a good segue.
What a great idea.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. First question is from Daniel. It's an interesting thought exercise, and it's about recruiting. Would you rather be Oregon or Ohio State as a recruiting outfit for the next 5 years?
I still think I'd rather be Ohio State because it's in Columbus, Ohio. And I think that still outweighs anything that Oregon has to offer, considering it's in Eugene, Oregon. And that's not a place where it's not easy to get to. It's not a place where kids from Florida really, there are kids committing there from all over the country. And obviously Dan Lanning's doing a great job. They got a staff full of like serial killers on the recruiting trail. They're exceptional. They have a lot of money.
Serial killers.
Yeah, they're not just like regular recruiting killers. These guys are like, this is all they do. This is a recruiting staff. It's a staff put together to murder on the recruiting trail.
Okay.
They have. I
also think
money.
That part of the country, by the way, has the most serial killers per capita, so that checks out.
Yeah, I mean it certainly does. The Pacific Northwest is where serial killers get developed. Developed here, as they say.
They're developed there, not here. Not here.
Hashtag developed there. There's a couple. I'm not going to say Dahmer was developed at Ohio State. Let's be clear, okay? That was a transfer portal entry.
Okay,
in that respect. Fair. But no, Oregon's obviously done a great job. Phil Knight's influence there is palpable. Ohio State is, but I think a lot of the advantage that Oregon has right now might get mitigated as the profit sharing stuff happens over the next couple of months. Certainly, they're still going to have the ability to tap into Nike's resources when they want for the extra stuff that you need. But bottom line, location still has me thinking that I'd prefer Ohio State.
I think to me, it's Ohio State as well. And where they are, the NFL pipeline, the chance to, continue this coaching staff, all those things I think push Ohio State over the top. In terms of NIL, Oregon has deeper pockets than Ohio State. How much deeper? I don't know. Ohio State's doing pretty well on that front. I don't think it's like an insurmountable disadvantage. They've been surmounting it plenty of times with the best recruits in the country. But I would much rather have all the other things to offer and not just be trying to win with NIL alone. And I'm not saying that's Oregon's only weapon in the bag, but I can't think of any program that has won a national title solely based on winning NIL recruiting battles. I don't think that that's the right way or best way to build a roster. It's helpful to get good players, but like you've had this conversation a number of times. If it does come solely down to an NIL conversation, Ohio State tends to back out of some of those recruitments. That's not the way that they choose to build their roster. And I think that that's the more prudent approach. So like if you find Ohio State in a battle with Miami and Michigan State and Ole Miss, and those are the Final Four schools, like Ohio State probably not going to win that recruitment because they don't really want to.
I think to answer this question, I'd like to know whether or not Phil Knight's going to be alive for 5 more years. I keep talking about him dying. I should stop doing that. But he's 86. That's what 86-year-olds do. It's okay.
So you're not worried about the off-season curse and speaking it into existence, but you are okay just assuming that Phil Knight is going to be dead.
Well, we all will be eventually. Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point.
He's just
fact check.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Sorry. You never know. I would rather be Ohio State. Like if I thought that the NIL gulf was like significantly far apart, then maybe I would lean Oregon a little bit, but I don't think it is. Like even if Oregon has deeper pockets, as Austin said, which is probably true. There's really no way to know. I think like the reports or the conjecture of Oregon having like unlimited NIL is a little far fetched, but I'm sure they're not hurting for money. Clearly they're not to get players, but Ohio State does fine. Ohio State has geography on its side. Ohio State has tradition on its side. It has more NFL development on its side. Like if you're just checking boxes, Oregon might get to check the NIL box, but I don't know if it's checking any other box. So I'm still taking Ohio State there.
Yeah, I really feel bad for Kirby Smart though. Like he seems really broken up about this war that Georgia can't seem to win against Oregon. The poor guy. It's got to be rough down there in Athens for him.
I get a feeling Kirby was poking fun at his protege there. I do think it's actually, one of the things with Oregon. I don't think that, or I hope that people aren't listening to this and thinking we're dismissing them and what Dan Lanning is building there as a program, because they're pretty well coached. That is a team that has a lot of talent. They're going to be very, very good probably for a long time because Dan Lanning is going to be there for a while because Kirby Smart's not likely to go anywhere for a while. And I can't see Lanning leaving Oregon for anywhere else in the country at this point. So I do think that it does pose some interesting questions for the long-term battles in the Big Ten. But when it comes to just recruiting for the next 5 years, I'd still pick Ohio State.
Yeah, I think like Oregon is definitely positioning itself to be like the second most dangerous team, or from Ohio State's perspective, maybe the most dangerous team in the Big Ten. I would like to see Dan Lanning like win a big game before crowning them that, but clearly they're building their roster in a way that should position them for that. So
yeah, it's a good question.
It is a good question. Here's one from Bobby. Do you guys foresee Ohio State coming out of the gate being aggressive and trying to showcase what this new offense is, what this run game is in the first month of the season or so with the easier start? Or do you think it might be similar to last year's approach where it felt like the last few games Ryan Day was taking like an NFL style approach and like a ramp up to the biggest game by almost treating the beginning of the season as like preseason games?
Can I straddle the fence and say both?
Sure.
Like I think that Will Howard, if he is going to be the starting quarterback, and even if it's Devin Brown, whoever's the starting quarterback, they're going to be doing it for the first time. I think they need to be able to run the full offense in games and get a feel for that, and so that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, Justin Fry, and Carlos Locklin, everybody involved can figure out what's working, what's not working, what needs to be improved. If the personnel needs to be adjusted at all, mostly on the offensive line, but anywhere at those positions. And I think that running the full offense is the only way that you can do that. Is Ohio State going to have to do that for 4 full quarters? No, I don't think that they will. When you go with the twos, can you do more vanilla stuff and disguise some of what else is in the playbook and just work on fundamentals with that next wave? I think so. I that's what I would, I guess, most like to see from Ohio State. Like, dig into that bag of tricks and show some stuff and work on all the kinks in the first quarter and a half, and then ease off the gas pedal. I think that that's a realistic approach and probably one that I expect that we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the schedule for Ohio State, how it shakes out. I think it is like the perfect schedule to figure things out and then ramp things up. You can do both. The first two games against Akron and Western Michigan allow you to play a lot of players, do a lot of different things, maybe try some wrinkles, maybe, let Will Howard or Devin Brown or whoever it is, the quarterback, sort through the growing process. And then you have, Marshall, who's a pretty good team that will at least challenge you a little bit for a quarter or two. Then you go on the road to Michigan State. Then you have Iowa. Then you go on the road to Oregon. I think you have a really nice schedule to do pretty much whatever you want in these first, couple of weeks, and as you prepare for the Big Ten schedule. But it's also a situation where I think Ohio State, because of the just almost egregious amount of depth that they have heading into this season, where you can basically run split squad against Akron and Western Michigan, I think, and let everybody get a chance to see what they can do. Now, I think that'd be silly at the quarterback spot to open up the door at all for a controversy. I think you need to have that obviously sorted out by the end of the first week of August. But there is a ability, I think, with the running backs, with wide receivers, with tight ends, even with the way that you have the defensive line, the linebackers. I think those first two games allow you to do a lot of different things. And then you can start to really settle in at the September 21st date against Marshall. I would view those first two games almost like preseason in the NFL. That's how I would view them if I was Ohio State.
But you would still do your stuff. Like, I don't know.
I'm not saying like don't run your offense and stuff. I'm just saying run it with a lot of different people. Give people an opportunity to see what they can do. You should win those games handily without much, if you only played your second team. Not that you shouldn't play your starters, but I think that's the opportunity to really see what those other young guys can do.
Yeah, I think that the schedule will provide them those opportunities. It is like a twofold question, as like Austin said. I personally would love to see them come out aggressive, like kind of set the tone early, even if it's against Akron. It's like Ohio State should be winning like 40-0 at halftime. So like go out there and do that. I felt like last year a little bit that the discussion about it like being a ramp up to the Notre Dame game was like almost retroactively applied to justify not playing well for the first few games of the season. So like I don't believe that Ohio State will be in that position the start of the season. Like I think the defense will be firing on all cylinders. They should be going like for shutouts in these first few games. Not to say that they need to do it or else, but like that's the kind of defense that they have. So I think they should go into games with that kind of mindset. And I hope that the defense is more aggressive, and I hope that the offense is more aggressive. And I think that Chip Kelly is not the type of coach who's going to like soft pedal it through the first couple of weeks of the season. He's going to come out and do what he wants to do. So I think it'll feel different from the jump. There will be opportunities to play more depth with these first couple of games that maybe will feel a little different in terms of like the second half of games. But I think Ohio State's going to come out of the chute a little differently this year than they did last year. At least
just for context sake, the first game I played in the Dynasty on NCAA 25 against Akron was a 91-3 win for Ohio State.
91.
Let's go.
There was 950 total yards of offense, including 170 plus for Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins on the ground. So I got a lot of stuff done. That's all I'm saying.
Hammering him on the ground.
You can do a lot of things.
I think like in the pre-Notre Dame buildup, I didn't get that sense, Bill, last year, that's really what Ohio State was doing. But I did, was it that Minnesota and Michigan State combo, like in November, right before the game? Like those were like, let's get this over with, the pure vanilla. Like those are ones you could actually point to and be like, Ryan Day is not doing anything in these games. And I certainly hope that they wouldn't do that in September of this year. There's too much, I think, that they have to get accomplished to waste some of those snaps.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think anyone thought they were intentionally doing nothing in those first two games last year. It was like you had no idea what your offense was going to be. And then by the time Notre Dame came around, like, well, we got to go with this. So that's what it was. I mean, I I don't know that it was like an intentional slow burn. I do agree that the end of the season there was certainly a foot off the pedal type of feel.
And it's hard to ratchet it back up, I think. Like I understand why you would want to do that leading into the biggest game of the season, but it can be difficult to flip that switch if you spend it 2 weeks prior just sort of going through the motions. So I think it would be good for Ohio State to just never enter that mindset this year, I think.
And don't have all your key players get hurt.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. And also maybe the other team isn't cheating and stealing your signals.
Also wouldn't hurt.
That's neither here nor there.
That's a lot of factors to consider.
Since Byrne touched on this, let's move to this question from Garrett. What do you guys think of the new college football video game, which officially comes out today? But if you wanted to, you could have gotten it early access on Monday. I've been playing it all week, which I've been doing, and it sounds like Byrne has been doing. And I think Austin will get to experience it for the first time when we're in Indianapolis. So maybe this is a conversation you can't quite be a part of just yet. But Byrne,
I'm interested by the answer, though.
Pretty great so far, I think. I mean, I think there's parts of the game that are a little slow and unresponsive, like the menus and stuff. I mean, that's just me nitpicking. Like that type of stuff, I think, is a little bit laggy. There was some issues I had early in the week as far as like trying to create a dynasty where the logo, like it wouldn't show up and it just said Lorem Ipsum on it. And, I was playing a game against Marshall and, Marshall's chant is "We Are," right? Like, and they showed the Penn State mascot in the game. That was weird.
Well, if you say "We Are," then that creepy lion and James Franklin just
it's like Beetlejuice.
Disappears.
It's like
here we are.
Yeah, it's a mascot Beetlejuice. No, but other than that, I mean, I think it's been pretty great. I love the gameplay. I think it's really good. Excited as we record this. The team builder hasn't come online yet. That happens this Thursday night. So that's a part of the game I really like. I like customization and creating my own stuff. So I'm excited for that. But overall, it's worth the wait, I guess, of 10 plus years. I do not like that. And I assume they'll update rosters at some point with like the freshmen that did not early enroll.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, Leroy Roker is in the game for Ohio State, but none of the other guys are. So I don't know how that happened, but who knows?
And Josh Simmons is a freshman because he's not in the game. So they just replaced him with a freshman. Yeah.
And
we all know JT is not in the game. Yeah.
The Ohio State offensive line in this game is pretty bad. I'm just going to tell you right now. Like
it's not great. It's not. I was having a hard time playing with Ohio State behind that offensive line. Although Quinshot Junkins and Travion Henderson are nearly impossible to tackle.
Yeah, and there's really cool things that you can do, like the ability to slide protection and that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. The ability to like customize the depth of your stems on routes and stuff is really cool, and that alleviates a little bit of the pass rush problem that I was having using Ohio State because the offensive line does not pass protect for squat. So, I would like to see that be a little bit better and more true to life. But overall, it's pretty good.
I do wonder how dynamic they'll be with the roster updates. Not merely adding players, but also if it's clear that like, hey, Ohio State's offensive line is pretty good this year, like 4 weeks into the season. Well, then those players improve in the actual gameplay.
I don't know, but that's not going to help my dynasty, bud, because
it's too late.
I'm too late for that. So you can't just keep changing the roster as the dynasty's happening. But the road to glory is okay. It's pretty cool. I mean, they do a nice job with that. Overall, like, if you're a gamer, you'll like it, especially if you like football, which most of the people watching this show do, from what I've heard.
I've enjoyed seeing a lot of the like players trash talking about it and like posting clips of not just like playing with themselves and having a good time. Not like that, Berm.
Yikes.
Playing the video game as themselves. Let me rephrase that in a more careful manner. Crazy stat lines, but also trash talk. Like that's a real sort of gift for June and July when it's been tough to find a lot of content. I know that there are some people who think that we've talked about the game too much. I understand. I can assure you that we've done it a lot less than some other outlets who are living off of this content. So if you enjoy it, there's certainly a lot of places where you can get way more of it than what we've provided.
Can I pose one game related over under for Ohio State for this season?
Mm-hmm. Of course you can.
Brandon Innes posted a screenshot of his first game playing, and he had 24 catches in the game. Will he have that many this season for Ohio State?
Oh, that's good.
24
Yes,
catches.
I think I'll have.
Yeah.
I'll go over. I'll go over.
I'm going to take the over on that. That's
Okay.
Bill and I were talking about that. I don't remember what show. It was like adjusting the numbers and stats for this year if you're playing 16 games potentially or maybe 17, although that's probably an unlikely outcome for Ohio State specifically. But like all these things, touchdowns and yards and catches, are like there's going to be multiple games of opportunities and snaps worth of opportunities for them to boost that. Like you're not even talking about 2 catches a game for Brandon Ennis in that scenario.
Yeah, true.
I like seeing Jeremiah Smith have 1,000 receiving yards in one game too. That was cool.
I'm going to be honest with you. If you've used Ohio State in that game, Jeremiah Smith is the best player on the team.
He sure is. Yeah, he sure is. I don't have anything to add about. I echo everything Berm said about the game. The one thing I don't like is, and I can't. Maybe I'm making something up, but I feel like in the old games you used to be able to substitute like formationally, and I was really looking forward to going into Ohio State's defensive playbook and putting CJ Hicks at defensive end for some snaps. But you either have to put him at defensive end for every play, or he's just not there. So I was a little upset about.
Wait,
You know what's weird? I had a very sorry, Austin. I had a very opposite problem. The first time I played with Ohio State, CJ Hicks was exclusively lined up at defensive end, even though he was in the left outside linebacker spot. I could not get Jason Bourne or whatever his name is on the field. I was trying over and over, and I could not get him on the field. So, but I was able to substitutional packages and do different formational packages with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. So I don't remember how I did it, but I did it. But I could not get Jack Sawyer and CJ Hicks off the field as my edge rushers, and I don't know why. I could not get them off the field.
So the Ohio State EA Sports playbook also doesn't have a jack position?
That's correct. Yes.
Just checking.
Yeah. We can create custom playbooks though, so maybe I'll just do that, and I'll make all of our dreams come true with CJ Hicks
and our rivalries.
And our rivalries. Oh yeah, that's true. Art and our rivalries. Okay, that's enough video game talk. Let's get back to.
I will say, 3 weeks into my first dynasty, I got a notification that said Sonny Styles wanted to transfer because of my playing style. Like,
oh
really?
Wow.
I'm like, ouch. But it doesn't tell you what the playing style problem is. It doesn't say like he wants to see more blitzing or he wants to do more pass coverage. I don't know what the problem was. So like, it's just a very vague, amorphous blob of problem. Anyway,
so you gotta get your team in line, bro.
Yeah,
no culture of brotherhood there. Here's a football question from Eric. Do you guys think that Ryan Day is setting Will Howard up for more scrutiny than necessary by not naming him a starter? The longer this goes on, the more I see 2023 all over again. He will have an easier start to the season, but the judgment of each snap will be greater if the decision is dragged out. Akron and Western Michigan shouldn't need to be deceptive who's going to play tactics. If he is named starter early in the fall or early in camp, then the fan base can get excited at him versus looking for imperfections. Do you think they could create some confidence by naming him the starting QB early?
I do. I don't think that Ryan Day will take the same approach that he did last year. He's occasionally made some references to the way that the Buckeyes handled the quarterback situation a year ago, and as like one of the lessons learned and self-evaluation from the offseason. He has not gone into any great detail about that, but I think that we can all read between the lines that it didn't work to the advantage of Kyle McCord or Devin Brown or the offense as a whole. Now I'm not surprised that it hasn't happened now, that he didn't name Will Howard the starting quarterback coming out of April, or that he's probably not going to do it on Tuesday. I'd be shocked if he did. We use this point of reference all the time. If Justin Fields didn't get named the starter until early in August, when there was no other reasonable option for Ohio State, then that approach is not going to change with Will Howard or Devin Brown. Now, should it happen, you guys both mentioned this before, like 10 days, a week and a half into camp, like if it drags out longer than that, I would think you're starting to get into the same territory that they were a year ago, where that scrutiny does ramp up. And that includes not just on Will Howard, but also Devin Brown. And I don't know how to quantify positive or negative impact on that, but I know that having clarity tends to be welcomed, not just by those of us who follow the team, fans of the team, but people who are on the team, like to know who their starting quarterback is too.
I agree, but I also think ultimately it doesn't matter, because if Will Howard doesn't come out like playing with his hair on fire and dominating in those first 2 weeks, people are going to be clamoring for Devin Brown anyway, because that's just what fan bases like Ohio State and Alabama's of the world do. I mean, Jalen Milroe, he was benched a year ago, and now he's, Mr. All World everything. Everyone loves him again in Tuscaloosa. So because he completed a lucky pass against Auburn. But I do think that from Ohio State's perspective, the value of naming your starting quarterback early in fall camp is very obvious. So let's not play the game that happened last year.
I think I do agree that if Ryan Day doesn't, then that will invite more scrutiny. Obviously, there's scrutiny either way, but you can help the situation by naming a starter early, and I think you will. I don't expect him to do it in Indianapolis either, but I could see it happening after the first week of camp, or if maybe he doesn't outright do it, like he leaves enough breadcrumbs for us to know that. Like I think we all believe that Will Howard will be the starter, but Ryan Day has not really gone too far down that road really with anything he said. I think he might in the beginning of camp, even if he doesn't outright name him, by the end of that first week or first scrimmage or whatever it is. I think whatever the timeline has been, I think like CJ Stroud was around August 20th, if I remember right. Justin Fields, I think, was the same. Obviously, Kyle McCord and Devin Brown was a little later. I think this will be the earliest that Ryan Day does it. I don't know what date that'll be, but I think it'll happen fairly early in camp.
It's basically been 2 weeks before the start of the season, right? I mean, there hasn't been a lot of deviation from that. So I think we should expect no later than the middle point of August. So if practice starts on August 1st, we're talking August 15th, right? So yeah, I would be shocked if it doesn't happen by then, one way or the other, like whatever it is. And if, we went back and forth with this a year ago, like it does it mean that they're both playing so well, or does it mean they're both playing so inconsistent? Does it mean that they have two good options or no good options? Like, I just don't think that's good for anybody to do that again. And so you got to trust your instincts. Like Ryan Day has established himself as one of the preeminent quarterback coaches in college football. And I think to continue that, he needs to trust himself and say, this is my guy, and go with it, and stop worrying or stop trying to figure out if he's trying to balance egos or whatever. Like, pick your guy and go.
This could be another situation of many where Chip Kelly's influence with Ryan Day and Chip Kelly being in the quarterback's room, maybe there will be a change in that. Maybe it'll be like, you know what? Chip Kelly wants to get this done, and he wants to be able to communicate it to a plan to Will Howard and Devin Brown and Julian Sayin and Aaron Nolan and Lincoln Keenholz. Like maybe some of that delegating of responsibility helps and changes this a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but maybe it will.
That's a good point.
Yep. Question from Thomas. Why? I don't know that I agree with this assertion so much, but I'll read it as is. Why does Jim Knowles get let off the hook for a lack of turnovers created last year? He went over aggressive to softer but more effective from one year to the next. Michigan was plus 19 in turnover margin last year to lead the country. For the defense to be considered truly elite, turnovers and more creative ways of affecting the quarterback need to happen. I hope Knowles finds that balance this year. What do you guys think of that idea, and whether or not Jim Knowles maybe has been questioned enough about that idea?
I think he would agree that they're not creating enough of that stuff. So I'm not going to entirely disavow the question, but I will say that heading into year 3 as a defensive coordinator with completely changing the approach at Ohio State, I think this is maybe a little bit of a Goldilocks situation. Your first year was a little too cold. Last year was maybe a little too hot, or vice versa. And now you hope in year 3 you get it just right, because there has to be a balance of how much you're going after the quarterback, how much chaos you're creating, but also making sure you're not allowing yourself to get beat deep 13 times a game. So there needs to be a balance. The fan base basically wanted to rip Jim Knowles apart at the end of 2022 when he said, "Oh, we're fine with giving up 5 big plays a game." Like, okay, that's way too many. But now, if last year it was certainly much better, but there was a lot less chaos caused. And when you have the types of players Ohio State has on the defense, I think you can afford to take a couple chances and let those guys get creative and make some plays. So hopefully he finds an answer this year. I don't know that he's been let off the hook. I just think that it's hard to complain about the number 2 ranked defense in the country, no matter what the argument is.
We definitely asked them about it last year. I certainly agree with the premise that they should be generating more havoc. I hope that they do. There's really no reason that they shouldn't. But we for sure, I think most Jim Knowles press conferences last year, we were talking about like lack of sacks, lack of tackles for loss, splash plays, whatever. And his answer was sort of always kind of what Berm said, that they erred on the side of being, well, I guess, like a more sound defense and keeping things in front of them than they did chasing those kind of things. But I think they will find a better balance of it this year because the experience in the system and the talent on hand, which is considerable, will allow them to do that.
Austin, let me ask you this question before you dive in. How much of Jim Knowles trying to balance out those two approaches do you think was directly related to the shift in offensive productivity from 22 to 23?
A decent amount, I think. The approach has to change, and it did change. I think there are a number of factors. The one that jumps out to me more than any of the others, Berm, is like Jim Knowles getting a handle on the fact that he had way better personnel than he had at any other stop before. He didn't have to create the havoc and confuse opponents to the level that he may have had to scheme it up in the past. Some conversations that I've had with him, that's been my takeaway. Bill, I know you've had some of those as well. Like, he does not have to force the issue, and he, I think, realized that they could play a more conservative style defense, certainly than he did 2 years ago, and be even better than they were because they understood the system. They had better personnel than anybody else they were going to play against, and they needed to play complementary football with the offense. So I think they got out of whack doing that at times, not just because they were the explosive plays that you mentioned were being turned directly into touchdowns, which was the problem with giving up 5 big plays, namely against Michigan. But they don't have to do it that way. They don't have to intercept 3 passes a game to win either. So I think it's difficult for him to make that adjustment. The part, Bill, from the question that we were asked that I think is more relevant, I've been on record about this a number of times. I think all 3 of us have. To me, it is not about the number of turnovers that Ohio State forces on defense. It is finding more creative ways to pressure the quarterback. And if that leads directly to strip sacks or rush decisions from the quarterback and an uptick in turnovers, so be it. They're probably directly related. But I think that is where it comes from more than anything. It's not like Ohio State's not trying to intercept footballs. Like,
yeah,
they're not. Those are going to come and go in some respect. But the thing that you can put in your own hands is consistently pressuring the quarterback. And I think the point that we've tried to make more than anything else is that doesn't have to come from Jim Knowles blitzing a ton. There are other ways to do it.
Well, there are, and it takes the coordinator and defensive line coach, I think, being of the same mind to execute some of that stuff, which is another part of the issue, I think. With and it's not that the defense is bad, right? Like I know we keep saying that, but it feels like a point worth making. Like, they were a very good defense last year, but you just always, at least me, like I always felt like there was like more there. It's totally okay to be just like a schematically sound, don't give up big plays, solid defense. But I like to watch a defense kind of gets after people too. And I don't know that I would say that was a calling card of Ohio State's defense last year. When it felt like it could have been and maybe should have been. And I think it could be and should be this year too.
Bill, do you agree with my thought that maybe the defense was even more conservative than they thought they would be based on how inconsistent the offense was, and they felt they couldn't take chances? And I'm just theorizing this now. It's not something I've ever asked anybody, but now I'm starting to wonder if that played a part in it as the season went along.
I think maybe that played a part in them sort of never deviating from the approach throughout the year. I think the original thought just came from giving up too many big plays. Like, I don't believe that Ryan Day in the offseason was like, I think we're only going to score like 28 points per game this year, so please don't blitz a lot. But it became pretty evident after a few weeks that the offense was just not going to be a typical Ohio State offense. So if Jim Knowles in his mind thought he would have a gradual build up to putting more packages in or unleashing players, as he said in the offseason, maybe he just never did that because it was obvious that they were going to have to be a team that probably got by on how many points that they surrendered rather than scored, which is kind of a flip of the script for Ohio State.
I think the only reason that I would, and I don't know, we're spitballing on this idea that you have there, Berm. Like if Jim Knowles thought, well, this offense is struggling, like maybe I need to force the issue more. Like maybe we need to score a defensive touchdown every other week to help out the offense. Like I think that realization could have like inspired him to actually be more aggressive than he was. So I don't. You have to consider it in some form because you want the offense and defense, as I mentioned, they need to play complementary styles. And 2 years ago, I don't know that they maybe were. But I don't think that Jim Knowles can operate in a world where he's like solely concerned about how much he needs to help or not help out the offense.
True. Well thought.
Very true.
I don't know. It's another great question. That was from Jeremy in Michigan.
Here is a question from BW. Football fever is heating up with things like the video game and Hard Knocks and fantasy football drafts. With that in mind, what are your top 3 football movies? And you don't have to give a top 3. You can just give your favorite if you want. But do you guys have a favorite football movie or 2 or 3 or 5?
I think Any Given Sunday is my favorite. It's all about those inches right in front of your face.
I have gaps in my football movie knowledge that I really shouldn't have as somebody who covers a sport for a living because I've never seen Any Given Sunday. I don't think I haven't seen like The Program.
Oh, wow. You haven't seen The Program?
There's another one I haven't seen.
Wow.
You've never seen Steamin' Willie Beeman?
No.
On Any Given Sunday?
The Program is the best football movie like that's been out, obviously. But does The Last Boy Scout count? Just kidding. To me, The Program is the best. Varsity Blues is great, of course. Friday Night Lights is amazing. I'm not going to say The Longest Yard. You know what I mean?
I like The Replacements. I think The Replacements
is good. Yeah.
I know the worst football movie of all time, and it's Rudy.
We're not here to bash Rudy.
It's either Rudy or The Blind Side. They both suck.
Yeah. The Blind Side just keeps getting worse with age as well. So it's weird how that's happened. Yeah. Little Giants is also a very good football movie.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Little Giants is great. Yeah.
But Bill, you need to watch The Program just so you can watch Wyatt Davis's father.
So I've seen clips of Wyatt Davis's father because I wrote a story about them and like.
Did you feel like a fraud?
You didn't watch it to prepare?
I watched clips of it to prepare. I didn't watch the whole thing, but wow. I didn't tell them that.
You read the Cliff's Notes.
I read the Wikipedia summary.
The Wikipedia.
That's right. Any other football movies before we move on? I have one more Ohio State football question to get to.
That's all. My only thought is that it's disappointing you haven't seen The Program. It's pretty much like
what's more disappointing, that I haven't seen The Program or that I haven't seen Any Given Sunday?
I've never seen Any Given Sunday.
Oh wow!
So
while I'm playing video games on Monday and Tuesday night, you guys are going to be having a little movie night. I'll get the popcorn for you.
Hoo-ah.
All right, here's a football question. This comes from Paul. There's been plenty of good conversation about freshmen on offense making a possible impact this year, whether that's Jeremiah Smith, obviously, or Mylan Graham, or James Peoples. But which freshmen do you think have a chance to make an impact on this veteran defense? His guesses are Edric Houston or Jalen McClain, but he wasn't sure if we had any other freshmen who we think might see playing time this year on defense.
Nope. Yeah, I don't have any. Those are the only two that I would even have in the conversation right now.
What about Aaron Scott? Is corner just too deep?
I mean, he'll get playing time. Is he going to get playing time that matters? I would have a tough time seeing that as the case right now, but I mean, we'll see what happens. We didn't expect to see Jermaine Matthews getting the playing time he got last October. But obviously when you have Denzel Burke and Davis Nagbenose and Jordan Hancock and Jermaine Matthews, you feel pretty confident that you've got some good players at corner. If the Buckeyes get to the position where they need Aaron Scott to play meaningful minutes, I think that's a problem and something happened. I don't think that's the same situation when it comes to Edric Houston, who I think is just going to be a real problem in the Big Ten eventually. And generally speaking, Larry Johnson has done a good job of getting those young, like highly recruited guys on the field as freshmen. And at safety, I think it's just a matter of not having the depth. And I think Jalen McClain and his ability to understand the defense and be a physical presence back there, especially with Malik Hartford's injury history, I think he's in a position to play. That's why those two are different to me. Other than that, there's nobody that I would expect to play.
Yep.
It's got, I think the clear number one out of that entire group is Edric Houston. And I prefer generally to be skeptical about true freshmen helping on either side of the football. Clearly I can't do that with Jeremiah Smith this year, but the way that people were talking about Edric Houston in his practices in March and April was, I can't say it's unlike anyone else ever, because Chase Young and Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa all played defensive end at Ohio State. So that's not uncommon to hear defensive linemen talked about in that regard with their practice habits and performance. But that's the sort of category that he was approaching in March and April with some of the conversations I was having.
What about Eric Mensah? Again,
Like, I think if it gets to that point, and Mensa has been a surprise. I mean, he's been better than people were anticipating. He's also put in like a ton of extra time and being a real student of the game and hanging out with like the veterans and trying to pick brains. But if you get down through Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton and Jason Moore and Hero Canoe and Caden McDonald and Taiwan Malone, and you are needing Mensa to play, that's again something went horribly wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's part of it for me is like there's so much that feels a little wide open once you get past those top four defensive linemen, that if one of the two freshmen we talked about just has their stuff together, maybe they can make a push, but then that wouldn't necessarily be a ringing endorsement of the development of the guys ahead of them either.
Right.
So
of Will Smith, of Taiwan Malone, like, I mean, that would be a problem, I think.
Yeah. We have one more question. It's a wrestling question. Should I ask it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I know for a fact the analytics say that people love when you guys talk about wrestling.
I don't even have a great answer.
We get a big spike in viewership at the end of the show.
Yeah, if you turn your laptop upside down, it's a huge spike.
You know,
well,
almost all of our videos do that at the end.
What you should do? We should just tell everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great time. Have a great weekend. If you want to hear the answer to this wrestling question, stick around. Consider it a bonus. It's the encore of the mailbag. But if you don't, have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks for watching. We appreciate you. This question is it's a question from Josh Mustachio. He's one of our guys. He sent us a very nice text.
That sounds like a wrestling name.
I know. Yeah, he sent us a very nice text in addition to this question about how much he likes what we do. So I wanted to ask his question, and I actually think Austin's probably the only one qualified to answer it because I have only been.
You're not?
No, because I was out of the game for a long time.
Okay.
He asked, with John Cena announcing his retirement, would you like to see him, or who would you like to see him face one last time? And would you like to see him get his 17th title to have the record before he's officially done?
It's a great question. I think what John Cena has done over the course of his career, even when people were tired of some of the Rock Cena once in a lifetime ×2 stuff was going on, Cena was not disappearing from the WWE for such long stretches the way The Rock did. I think he has invested more in this company, in that company, than just about anybody ever has. So combine that with some of the later in life issues that Ric Flair has had, staying out of the headlines. I think John Cena should break that record, and I think that he's deserving of it. The WWE has also been in a recent mindset with Roman Reigns' title reign, with Gunther's title reign, that they are okay with making some history. And for too long, I think WWE was leaning on what happened in the 80s and 90s and not generating current history so that you can build on and improve on as you continue to move forward. And I think that John Cena has done that, is deserving of doing so. Who should he finish his career against? I think there's a lot of money to be made with another CM Punk feud. If Punk ever gets medically cleared to go back in the ring, I think that's got to be part of it. I think he needs to face Roman one more time. I don't know if the final boss is going to be part of that storyline, or it couldn't be looped in with anything for Cena for next year. But you have to have a CM Punk match. I think you need to have Cena and Reigns in some form or fashion. He's already been involved against the Bloodline with Solo Sikoa, so there's an easy hook into that. And if he's going to break that record, then that means he's either going to have to face Cody Rhodes or Damian Priest or Drew McIntyre or Seth Rollins or somebody of that ilk. But probably Cena versus Cody would move a lot of merchandise as well.
His decision to go on this retirement run now makes, because I just assumed that Gunther was going to win the title at SummerSlam, and now I think he probably won't, because I just can't see a world where they would have him win and then deny him a long title reign by having him lose to John Cena at WrestleMania or something like that. So it changes the way SummerSlam is going to look for me, which is actually kind of exciting. But without being emotionally invested in John Cena in any way whatsoever, it would be cool to see him break that record. So I hope they do it.
No, you wouldn't be able to see him break the record. That's what I heard.
Just be told about it. That's right. Just be told about it. Yeah.
We all have heard the tales of the legendary John Cena. Great question. Appreciate that from Josh. Love getting those texts from him. There is somebody out there, Berm, who does care what Bill and I think about wrestling. Believe it or not.
He's the one.
Josh Mustachio.
The man.
That does sound like a wrestling name.
Yeah. If you did stick with us through that long John Cena answer, thank you. Appreciate you spending your week for at least a Freaky Friday with us for one more mailbag. We're not going to be doing these as much anymore. That's right. The off season is over. And I know that you're all looking forward to that just as much as we are. Can't wait to get to Indianapolis next week with these guys for a lot of coverage on the podcast daily. Of course, we'll have everything else that you're used to, including some full scale coverage with Kings from Bill and Doug. So that
road breaks
with Card Collector 2 will be back. Should probably do that Monday night, right? We're back on the road. We'll do that Monday night. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of another mailbag. So we can talk about,
we can watch while we do it too. Wrestling.
Yeah, we'll open cards and watch wrestling like the 13-year-olds that we actually are.
Right.
Thanks
I'll
again
for your one. Rip some cards.
You won't either. You watch it too. Stop pretending like you don't.
Side-eyed. I'm going to call the Italian Rock Josh Mustachio from now on.
All right. That's it. Thanks for joining us. This is the Podcast Daily. That's Bill and Berm. I'm Austin. Have a great weekend.